and welcome to For the Record. This evening, we're discussing with the Biosecurity Authority of Fiji the swarming season of the AST, or Asian Subterranean Termite, which is currently started from August to November. And we have joining us is Mr. Nilesh Chand, who is the Chief Plant Protection Officer at the Biosecurity Authority of Fiji, and he's joined by Mr. Riten Gusai, who is the Senior Plant Protection Officer at the Biosecurity Authority of Fiji. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So for a number of years, annually, the Biosecurity Authority of Fiji has been raising awareness, doing a lot of advocacy and knowledge creation on the AST, Asian Subterranean Termite. How serious of a problem is this for Fiji, especially after all the years of advocacy? And is it still persisting at the rate that it was a few years ago?
Yeah, thank you, Ziad, and thank you for this opportunity to represent the organization Biosecurity Authority of Fiji and to share with our audience this evening a few of the important points that they should take in regards to the Asian Subterranean Termite, or in short we say AST. This organism is exotic to Fiji. It has never occurred in Fiji in the previous years, and it has been lately seen in Fiji in especially two areas of this country. Firstly, in the Western Division, Lautoka area, and secondly, in the northern Lambasa district. So this Asian Subterranean Termite is, as I said, exotic, and probably it has found its way from one of the overseas countries into Fiji, and it has been, according to the experts, been here for quite a number of years, probably in very low numbers, and not been discovered through the surveillance and monitoring systems. However, as time went on, the population grew, knowing Fiji is very organic and lush in environment. So these termites have come to start affecting the wooden-based materials, basically because cellulose is their main source of food. So in that regards, most of the houses in Fiji have some wooden structures, and these termites have went on and started infesting them as well, including the green trees, plants, and other materials. Recently, the organization has also noted that a lot of paper products stored and not being disturbed for a while are also being affected, together with clothing. And in some instances, when people put money and notes under their bed or under their sleeping materials, they also get affected.
Drawers and cupboards as well.
Yeah, drawers and cupboards as well. So in that regards, a few libraries in the schools have been affected as well. Now the problem, as you have mentioned rightfully, was on the increase for a while, and knowing the way organisms behave in a new environment, there was a huge spike in the population over the last 10 years or so. But currently we have seen that the population has very well stabilized, and there is, I would say, no upward trend of termites in those areas. However, there are occasional lateral ways that these termites are spreading.
It's a good opportunity for us tonight on the show to, I guess, understand more in depth about how the AST operates and what it's really about. You mentioned Lautoka and Lambasa as the declared zones, and you also mentioned that Fiji's climate is what makes an ideal breeding ground for the AST. But does it have anything to do with the dry season in Lautoka and Lambasa, for example? Are other places in Fiji at risk?
Yeah, thank you, Ziad. In regards to how the AST operates in the environment, a lot of times they are more liking an environment that has a lot of moisture, but the moisture should not be too abundant. So, for example, looking at the geographical locations in Fiji, Lautoka and probably Lambasa have similar type of weather patterns where there is moisture, just enough for them, but not too much. So in comparison to the Central Division, likely the termite infestation might not occur in huge numbers here because it's usually too moist, and these creatures, being social in nature, staying underground at least 3-4 meters deep, would not prefer this kind of environment. So in that regards, the areas in Lautoka and Lambasa also having a lot of vegetation, plantations, are very conducive to these termites to
Probably, I would like to add to that, Ziad and Geraldine. So you specifically mentioned the areas of Lotoka and Lambasa, and like Mr. Chan said earlier, it is an exotic termite that has come into the country. So that relationship goes back to the port of Lotoka, and that is where the termite has come into the country from, and that is why the infestation is localized in Lotoka. And then you'd also have to think about the port in Lambasa. Probably the transfer of the termites from Lotoka to Lambasa happened that way, and that is why the termites, the AST, are localized in those two districts in particular. And Biosecurity's control and containment program has been always working in that regard to ensure that the termites do not spread out of those two declared AST infested zones to other parts of the country.
And since you bring that up, the BAF also mentioned earlier this year that there's been minimal movement of the AST out of these declared zones. And I'd just like to understand why. Because we do know that the AST can become airborne, but how does it travel?
Yeah, thank you, Ziad. A lot of times, these AST creatures, if you physically look at them, are very tiny in nature, and they cannot by themselves travel very long distances due to the energy levels that they have within themselves. So a lot of times, we have known that these termites are aided by human activity, people taking host materials from affected areas to other zones. And what happens is these termites are unknowingly transferred with those host materials from areas of infestation to areas of non-infestation. And what happens is when people take materials to their places in newer areas, they usually don't use the materials there and then. So it gets stored for a while, these termites slowly escape into the environment, and then after a few months or so, then the effects, signs, symptoms start to appear.
We'll be back after a short break. Stay with us. So there's been minimal movement of the AST outside of the declared zones, Lotoka and Lambasa. And the acting CEO, Mr. Pratap, earlier said, revealed to the media that it's because of the Biosecurity Authority's swift action that any movement outside of the declared zones has been prevented. I'd just like to know and get into the details of how that has happened and what the procedures and policies are to protect the declared zones and to protect from any movement outside of the declared zones.
Thank you for the question, Ziad. Probably I would like to start off by saying that there has been extensive public education and awareness created in the Lotoka and Lambasa districts for the people to follow biosecurity requirements, in the sense that if they have to move AST host materials, and there are a lot of materials that can harbor these termites, that they must seek the inspection services and also approval from Biosecurity Authority of Fiji, a clearance certificate, before they can move the materials out of Lotoka and Lambasa. But now let's backtrack a little bit to the National Emergency Declaration, which is a gazetted emergency declaration that lasts for up to 6 months. But of course, for AST, it is renewed every 6 months, which legally restricts the movement from the declared AST zones, the AST host materials, so out of these areas. And people in Lotoka and Lambasa are well aware of this National Emergency Declaration in place, and of course our officers on ground are creating that awareness for the people to follow in terms of whenever they want to move anything that can harbor AST. And it is for that reason the movement of all sorts of AST host materials out of Lotoka and Lambasa is restricted, and it is probably that which is keeping the infestation within, contained within Lotoka and Lambasa, and ensuring other areas are safe from AST infestation.
When you say host materials, what can you give any examples or maybe explain?
Yeah, thank you, Ziad. In regards to the host material, as I mentioned earlier, the termites are feeding on wooden materials, or cellulose is their main ingredient. So any material which contains cellulose is their favorite as a food material. So that includes all green plants, although they have affinity to certain favorite green plants like mangoes and coconuts, and they also would like to feed on timber that is straight grained. So in the olden days, there used to be some Oregon timber. That was noted to be one of their favorites. However, in comparison, mahogany is not really a favorite timber because of the cross grains. And in that regards, as I mentioned earlier, the paper products made out of cellulose entirely is their favorite as well. And they also feed on a lot of cotton materials.
For an infested area, for example, a dwelling, if it does happen to have the AST within that particular area, does that mean that it is now condemned, or are there any courses of action that can be available to probably get rid of the infestation?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Actually, when infestation is noticed by a consumer, the first and the foremost thing that they should do is contact Biosecurity Authority of Fiji. We have trained personnel who will come out to you in the shortest time possible to find out what is the problem. A lot of times people complain about infestations, but it might not be the problematic AST. It could be something else. So when our trained personnel go, they will advise the households. If it is AST, it is a government grant project by the Fijian government, fully catered and funded for, and Biosecurity Authority of Fiji will assist the consumers who are affected to get over with this problem. We'll provide advice, we'll provide all the technical know-how, we'll provide chemical control, we'll do monitoring, and then we'll assist the consumers to get over with this, together with the preventative measures that they have to take in order to not get a reinfestation in place.
Now, you've mentioned that the Biosecurity Authority of Fiji, of course, will be the first point of contact should that happen. But how do we figure out whether or not there is an infestation, or there could be a possibility? When do we have to notify you? What are the signs, symptoms? What are some of the warning signs, should I say?
Usually one of the first warning signs that consumers see is termites flying in the house. Because that is one of the point in their lifestyle where they emerge from their colonies. Usually these termites are very small, tiny, and they stay hidden in their own colonies, or they get hidden in the structures within the houses, usually in the double walls. So when people are in their houses, they will notice sometimes the double walls, the paint is bulging a little bit, or they will notice some broken wings after termites have flown around. Or if they are very careful, especially early in the mornings around 2-3 a.m., when it's very silent, pin drop silence, you might be able to hear the termites munching away on the wooden structures, as if there is a packet of bongo or something inside within the walls. So that crunching sound is a telltale that there is something happening behind the walls. Together with that, you might notice that your house will have a few pieces of soil material, unusual soil material. So that is also a sign that there are termites within your structure.
So if you notice that if you see signs in your household that there may be an infestation, and you don't report it to the biosecurity, or you don't take any action, you just leave it like that. Number one, of course, as we know, you're helping the spread of AST. But what damage can it do to someone's household?
It can really have a devastating effect. In common terms, we say these termites are a silent cyclone. So what happens is their feeding pattern is such that when they come into a household, they will start feeding from the topmost structure and then go downwards. Because if they start feeding from the bottom, then the structure is going to collapse on them. However, we have seen in many instances where the termite infestation has caused ceilings to fall down, for walls to be disrupted, and so forth. So in those words, we might say that if you don't take heed, if you don't take action, first and foremost, you are affecting yourselves by not taking control and heed, but at the same time, you are allowing the termites to grow in larger numbers and probably affect your neighbors, your other households, and the community at large.
Is there a approximate timeline between when they emerge from their colonies and start to seriously affect your household, and at what point in time, or how long does it take for the damage to really set in?
Yeah, the only reason they will emerge from the colonies to fly away, for that matter, swarming, is that their existing colony, the parental colony, has become too small for them to live properly. So what they are doing is starting to fly away from the parents to start a new colony for themselves. And it really depends on where the new male and female land and get conducive environment. One of the prerequisites is moisture. The other prerequisite is if there is a soil media where they can burrow into. another prerequisite is if they are able to find that is there suitable timber materials. So if those things get click into place and they are undisturbed for a period of time, then the reproduction cycle starts. The experts have told us that it takes at least about 3 to 4 years before you really see signs of it into your household. However, that is very much a theoretical figure. It could probably be earlier as well.
Stay with us. We'll be back after a short break and we'll discuss the Invasive Alien Species Project. So we're discussing the Asian subterranean termites, and we've discussed a lot of things about them, but then can you imagine a scenario where we're able to completely eradicate AST from Fiji? Can such a thing happen? And in order to minimize their numbers and to implement control measures, what is it that people on the ground need to do?
Yeah, thank you, Ziad, for that. In order to completely get rid of AST is a very ambitious statement. Just because a lot of countries, highly developed countries, are affected by this organism, and they have not been able to come up with a complete eradication program. However, in the other sense, if you look at AST, what they're trying to do ecologically is trying to recycle the nutrients. So for ecologists, it might not be a disadvantage, but for household and other people who get adversely affected, it is a bad effect. So AST in nature, or termites in nature, are trying to recycle nutrients by breaking down all these wooden and timber materials and probably producing compost, which the plants can readily use in their growth cycle. Yeah.
Before we get to the UN development program that had an invasive alien species project that you were partnering with, or part of rather, just a final question on the AST. What is the significance of lighting controlled fires, of course the keyword being controlled fires, in an effort to combat this?
Thank you for that question, Geraldine. So this is when the termite sowing period is in season, which is currently underway. So it starts somewhere around August, September, and lasts up till November. And as earlier explained by Mr. Chan, this is when the termites, some of the termites in the colony or in the nest, develop wings and fly to new areas, probably to start a new colony and infestation. So during the termite swarming season, from August to November or September to November, this is when we encourage people in the infested areas, which is Lautoka and Lambasa, to light controlled fires outside of their homes, because termites get attracted to light. And during the probably after sunset, close to 5-6 p.m. and up until 8 p.m. this is when we encourage this, to switch off all lights inside their homes, use as much minimal lighting as possible, and to light fires outside of their homes, so that if there is a swarm somewhere around the home, or if the termites are swarming in the area, they will get attracted to the fire and probably come and burn themselves in the fire. And this will prevent the termites from actually entering the house and starting infestation and damaging the property.
And for so many years, we've all seen that it was advocated in the media, the Biosecurity Authority, paid messages advising people to light controlled fires.
Exactly.
Have you seen a noticeable difference? People coming in, maybe reporting back to you about the differences that they've seen or something that they've noticed? Has it been effective so far?
Yes, over the last 3-4 years, especially during the swarming period, we have noticed quite well that the level of swarms that used to occur previously has really gone down. The swarming extent is also quite low currently compared to what was happening before, and probably all these combined efforts of using chemicals and using all these cultural methods to control, as well as raising awareness and advocacy, is showing some good results to Biosecurity Authority of Fiji. And we are very thankful for the government of the day to provide this grant and to promote this activity so that we can benefit the affected citizens.
So you had said that this is of course not endemic to Fiji, it was brought in, it's exotic to Fiji, which is why we need to step up our border protection measures that we have. One thing in particular that the Biosecurity Authority of Fiji had done with the UNDP was to launch a week-long consultative workshop, and this was to try and put together a working document that would help you in this, in the fight against invasive alien species. Tell us about it.
Okay, the invasive alien species workshop was basically born out of one of these infestation programs, basically because we needed to have a framework. Biosecurity Authority of Fiji can only do that much, but we need our stakeholders, we need other agencies, we need NGOs to work together to come up with a plan so that if there is any future occurrence of invasives in the country, we all know how to tackle it, where to get the resources, and who to approach in order to get a rapid control action in place. So in that regards, UNDP, which had this JEF 6 project running in the country, thought that we should go one level higher, rather than only looking at containment and control, have strategies in place as a framework so that all the relevant agencies come together, pitch in their efforts, provide resources, and see that we are working in unison, working together to protect our beautiful nation.
So I'd just like to know the week-long consultative workshop. What were some of the outcomes of that workshop, and how close are you at the moment to getting a guiding framework?
This was one of the initiating workshops in order to get the invasive alien species strategy in place, and there will be follow-up workshops in that regards. Now, as an introduction, all the agencies involved have shown very positive reaction. They really can see that we are working towards a common goal, and the documentation that is being prepared in consultation with overseas experts, though COVID-19 doesn't allow travel internationally, but we are being assisted through electronic means, and we are preparing a document which will be a document that can be used Pacific-wide in order to tackle invasive alien species. And this can be looked at it as a pilot project, so that if Fiji is able to develop something, it could be equally used in other countries.
We'll carry on the discussion on this project when we come back in our next segment. Stay with us. So just carrying on the discussion on the invasive alien species project that you've collaborated with the UNDP for. The BAF has said that you're trying to get a document that will outline the strategies for controlling, managing, and eradicating invasive alien species. How do you think, in some specifics, this will help border control and to manage new infestations?
Thank you for that question, Ziad. So the advantage of this framework and the strategic action plan moving forward is that it will pool together resources from the many different organizations that operate within Fiji and also regionally, bring them together on the same platform, and see how best the Biosecurity Authority of Fiji, which is responsible in a greater sense to prevent the entry and establishment of exotic pests and diseases within, in Fiji, and then of course controlling the domestic movement of things that are already established here. That brings us to the invasive alien species concept and the framework or the strategic action plan that all of the stakeholders were working on in that workshop. So like I said earlier, it brings all of us together, it pools the resources of the many different agencies, and not only nationally but also regionally and internationally as well, so that we are all working in tandem and together in trying to address the issue of invasive alien species. And let me add to that the current work that the Biosecurity Authority of Fiji is doing in terms of our emergency response plans for both the plant side of things and also the animal pest and disease side of things. And that ties in very well with what the framework or the strategic action plan for invasive alien species is trying to achieve in the greater biosecurity sense.
I mean, so just from what you said, it's clear that the VAF does have a current framework that you're working with, right?
Yes.
For example, the response to AST swarming season. So will this new working document, this guiding framework, replace the current framework that's there, or just, I guess, sort of build upon it?
Yeah, actually, it will provide, it will strengthen the current program that we have, and it will provide a greater sense of direction towards ownership of the various agencies. Probably, if you have mentioned AST, it is a agricultural pest, as well as it is a forestry pest, as well as it is a structural pest.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, the different industries and the agencies have to take ownership that this one pest is going to affect so many multi-sectoral. So this framework is going to provide that space for those agencies to work, to pull together resources, and to have ownership, and to provide a common goal and direction in order to see that we are taking good control of it, we are managing it in the right way, and we are working towards some kind of eradication effect, or minimizing it as much as possible.
So with the current global pandemic as it is, of course, this doesn't mean that the BAF has time to rest on its laurels, because you still have a mammoth task of policing everything that is brought into various ports of entries. With that in mind, what sort of bilateral arrangements do you have with other countries that Fiji liaises with for import and export?
Yeah, Fiji has bilateral quarantine agreements or arrangements with specifically with New Zealand and Australia, and together with a few Pacific Island countries. And what that means is the arrangement allows for the exchange of materials, export and import of materials in a certain way. And one of the main impediments to trade is the pest and diseases that can go from one country to the other. And why that is of importance is because Fiji has its own set of pests and diseases, and not necessarily these pests and diseases are present in our trading partners. So their effort is trying to exclude those pests and diseases, and not to include Fiji's pests and diseases and affect their production in a bigger way. So what they are trying to tell us through these agreements is that we are going to prepare the produce in such a manner that it will not have, or we are going to mitigate it so that the pest and diseases that Fiji has is not going to be transmitted with the trade of these fresh fruits and vegetables and produce to the other countries. And that arrangement allows for confidence, and that arrangement also allows for fully compliance of the requirements between the trading nations.
And in fact, that brings me to the next subject that we have, which is the presence of fruit flies, which may affect Fiji's export capability. I mean, that's a serious issue, right? Because the presence of fruit flies, as reported by local media, in any commodity exported by Fiji to, for example, New Zealand, can be detrimental. So this was reported widely in the media, I think just a week or two ago. Talk to us about how serious of a priority this is for the Biosecurity Authority.
Thank you, Ziad. In regards to fruit flies specifically, New Zealand is one of the two countries in the world that does not have economic species of fruit flies, including the other one, which is Iceland. Now, New Zealand has a huge fruit and vegetable industry, and one of the trademark fruits is kiwi fruit, a billion-dollar industry. And fruit flies have a capability of adversely affecting that billion-dollar industry. So in that regards, while New Zealand wants to trade with fresh fruits and vegetables that they are not able to produce in their own country, they are mindful of not allowing any exotic species of fruit flies to go over. In our local context, Fiji has at least 7 species of fruit flies. Out of that, 4 species are of economic importance. Now, New Zealand, for example, has said, we love Fijian papaya, and we do not want to trade in that aspect. So what Fiji has to do is Fijian papayas get affected by our local fruit flies. So under the BQA arrangement, we have prepared certain terms and conditions whereby Fiji is going to produce those papaya in a particular manner and have it treated and exported to New Zealand in a biosecure manner. So in that regard, in biosecurity terms, we say it's a systems approach, it's a collective agreement, it's a collective action of ways of doing things so that every step in this systems approach is going to mitigate for those pests and reduce the levels of infestation so that when the produce finally is shipped out of Fiji into New Zealand, it is surely fruit fly free.
If I could just quickly ask one quick question. When it comes to it affecting, say, for example, certain produce, now when we do trade with the overseas partners, of course, one thing that is held in very high regard is those of organic origins. With these measures that you said that we've got in place, would it adversely affect those organic products that would be exported or imported?
Fiji is very mindful of the organic status, and we are more or less very much organic in that regards. So one of the mitigating factors together with the BQA arrangement under the systems approach is treating the produce so that we are able to get rid of the fruit fly infestation, whether it be in egg form, larva form, or in the adult form. So the treatment is done in an organic manner. It is using hot air. So the HTFA, high temperature forced air treatment facility based beside the Nadi airport in Nasoso, is having that capability of treating the produce with hot air at 47.2 degrees held for 20 minutes, and it is proven scientifically to get rid of all levels of fruit fly infestation. So in that way, the Biosecurity Authority of Fiji ensures that the organic status that is derived from the farms is carried through with the treatments and to our trading partners.
Stay with us for our final segment after a short break. Gentlemen, starting off our final segment, just a final question on the fruit flies affecting Fiji's export market. As you mentioned and as you explained earlier, that there are various stakeholders that you're currently working with. You have to, I guess, liaise with customs as well as the agricultural sector in terms of how certain fruits and vegetables are grown for export quality. How do you ensure that there's compliance in all areas, and sort of who ensures that there's adequate compliance, and who makes sure that no one drops the ball?
Thank you, Ziad. In regards to that compliance factor, Biosecurity Authority of Fiji has the mandate to see that any export produce out of the country complies with the trading partners' requirements. And in that regards, Biosecurity Authority of Fiji is the official contact point for FAO IPPC, International Plant Protection Convention. And the convention allows for trading partners to impose measures so that pests and diseases are not transferred with trade materials to their countries. Fiji is a signatory together with other 200 countries, and we use all those international standards for phytosanitary measures in order to govern our activities and actions in here. In regards to the local context, Biosecurity Authority of Fiji ensures that the horticultural production managed by agriculture section, the trade pathways, which is looked after by Ministry of Trade and Commerce, the aspect of duties and other tax factors looked after by FRCS, and any other logistic factors in between is managed in a manner that our produce are able to reach the international markets with a cost-effective measure. So in that regards, Biosecurity Authority of Fiji has the overarching duty in order to see that we are able to fulfill the export requirements in a manner which will be very sustainable and maintained for years to come.
Gentlemen, if you could digress from the discussion we've had so far tonight, let's look at a few general questions that seem to keep popping up, even though there's extensive material that is available on the BAF website that has been circulated to the public. It is, of course, Diwali and Christmas season soon, which would mean that we would be expecting quite a lot of care packages coming in, and with most Fijians being affected by COVID-19, there would be extensive care packages containing not just household items, but also mostly food items as well. And we've always had this issue or hearsay where we hear about certain items that are prohibited, and sometimes it is not prohibited, but it's been taken out. If you could just clarify some things about that. What is absolute no-no? What are some of the things that BAF will definitely confiscate if it is sent over, and what are some things that have certain conditions about it?
Thank you for that question, Geraldine. So one of the first things that I would like to say in that regards is that we always advise the public, not just here in Fiji, but overseas, who are wanting to send care packages back home, especially for Diwali and Christmas, like you said, is to take advantage of the information that is available on the BEF website. And together with that, also to take advantage of the email communication channel that we have created for anybody who wants to seek information from biosecurity in regards to what they can bring in and what they cannot. The email is a simple one, info@BAF, which is Biosecurity Authority of Fiji.com.fj. So again, info@bef.com.fj, and our personnel are on that email channel all the time, and they will respond to the queries in the shortest time possible. Now, in terms of the sort of a rigid question in terms of what is allowed and what is not, probably if they are sending care packages back home, they need to ensure that anything and everything that is off the market shelves, fresh fruits and vegetables, is an absolute no-no without an import permit from the Biosecurity Authority of Fiji and coming through the phytosanitary and the commercial side of things. So personal patches of fruits and vegetables sending into Fiji in care packages is a no-no. But if you look at the other side of the coin, processed commodities may be allowed depending on the nature of the commodity itself, how it was prepared and processed, and also the origin of the commodity. Now, our biggest trading partners are Australia and New Zealand in terms of dairy and meat products coming into the country. So majority of the items in the dairy and the meat side of things, and poultry, etc., that are origin of Australia and New Zealand are allowed, but with exceptions. And like I said earlier, so that takes me back to the point that I made, is that you have to seek clarity and information from us, from the Biosecurity Authority of Fiji, to be absolutely sure in terms of what you can bring in and what you cannot.
If you could just look also at the authority or the measures that BAF officers can exercise when inspecting packages that are brought in, do you have complete control over what you can allow to be brought into a customer's house, or things that need to be taken off that you feel that is not meeting the requirements that BAF has?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Geraldine. In order to really answer that question, we have to go back a step and see the assessment factor that the technical teams usually carry out at Biosecurity Authority of Fiji. And the assessment is linked to the prevalence of pests and diseases in the country of origin. So, for example, people would say, last year, during this season, we were able to get a certain product. Probably this year, it might not be allowed, restricted, prohibited, due to the prevalence of certain pests and diseases going around the world. So, in that regards, as Ritan has rightly mentioned, you need to seek first-hand information, current information from BEF before you want to get anything into the country. In that regards also, I would like to add that our BEF website is going to be revamped very soon with latest information and user-friendly versions of tables and metrics in order to show people what generally they can get and what is not allowed into the country.
Just very quickly also, there's also this old wives' tale about officers of any particular organization, BEF also, confiscating products and either taking it home or reselling it or using it. Could you shed some light on that? Is that true, or is that just nonsense?
Thank you, Geraldine. That is absolutely not true. It cannot happen in that manner, because whenever any item is confiscated, it's on a scientific basis, it's on a scientific ground. If the customers cannot use it, nobody else can use it.
Yes.
And the idea is, or the notion is, that the product is going to be condemned, it's going to be confiscated, and it ends up surely into the incinerators or is disposed of in a proper manner. So in that regards, not only Biosecurity Authority of Fiji, but the other associated agencies are also mindful that whenever items are confiscated, they will not, or they cannot enter into any other premises or any other arrangement, but to be taken to the appropriate biosecurity approved facility to be incinerated or to be disposed of in a proper manner.
Gentlemen, we're nearing the end of our show. Just a very final question. I mean, this entire show has been about creating awareness and advocacy on the AST swarming season. So for anyone who missed out, could you quickly summarize the things that a person needs to do to protect themselves?
Thank you, Ziad. In summary, we would like to say, First and foremost, if you are in the areas where this AST is occurring, please contact Biosecurity Authority of Fiji. We are the only agency empowered by the government to look after, to cater for, and to see that we are able to get over this problem which is happening in your compounds, in your households, and in your properties. In order to look after AST, Biosecurity Authority of Fiji is always doing awareness. Biosecurity Authorities of Fiji is always trying to get in partnership, get in contact with people who are affected. We have our toll-free numbers, we have our email addresses, we have our website, we have our staff all around the place. Please contact them. Please do provide information to us. Your information can be in regards to AST, or probably if you are doubtful, it could be something else. It could be another invasive annual species. Who knows? It could be something much bigger than AST. So the quicker, the better, the faster the information comes to us, the technical team can take action. They can find out what is the causative organism, and they can take appropriate measures in that regards.
Probably I'd like to add two more things to that, Ziad. One is that we are now in the AST swarming season, so please practice the do's and don'ts that we've highlighted earlier in the show for this time of the year. And also that early reporting is extremely important to prevent, if it is AST, downstream damages to your property. If you suspect it, report it.
Mr. Gusai, Mr. Chand, it's been a great discussion. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Ziad. Thank you, Geraldine.
And that's all we have for you on the show tonight. Thank you for joining us. Have a good evening.